Imagine in 1972, a 50-year-old Barbara Baekeland, returning back home, only to be assaulted by an unknown attacker. It doesn't take long before she then realizes that this attacker was her very own 26-year-old son, Anthony. Barbara would then die at the hands of her own son in a savage murder, sending shockwaves throughout high society in both Britain and America. And the death of Barbara Baekeland left only one question for so many people. Why did Anthony Baekeland murder his own mother? That's why today, I'll be discussing about a true crime book called Savage Grace, which is an American horror story you will never forget. This is the story of a woman named Barbara Daly Baekeland, who is known for attempting to cure her gay son by getting him to sleep with her, only for it to result in a gruesome death. But before we get there, let's go back to the 1940s, where Barbara had it all. Although she failed at becoming an actress, she did end up marrying a charming man named Brooks Baekeland, whose grandfather was chemist Leo Baekeland, the inventor of plastics. So you can imagine just how wealthy they were. You would think Barbara had the perfect life. She was even called one of New York's 10 most beautiful girls. But underneath that surface of money and power was a world of chaos and madness. You see, her father killed himself in 1932 when she was 10 years old. He made it look like an accident so that his family would be able to claim the insurance money. And her mother had a nervous breakdown a few years before she was born, which was a genetic trait that Barbara had inherited, unfortunately. That, along with an erratic behavior. Now what was shocking to discover was that Brooke, Barbara's husband, did admit that Barbara did manage to trick him into a marriage. And don't get me wrong, he did think she was beautiful and self-assured, but Barbara told Brooke she was pregnant at the time, even though she wasn't, and this resulted with him marrying her. But eventually, the couple really did have a child together in 1946. And this child would be named Anthony Bakeland, or Tony for short. Tony was a charming child, and was even called a prodigy. Not to mention he became quite the looker as he aged. But the only problem was that they found out he was gay after catching him experimenting with boys from around the age of 14. Which obviously wouldn't fit in, or be encouraged during that time period. Barbara had desperately wanted her son to get married to a woman, and get over his gay phase. So she would bring him prostitutes to cure his homosexuality. And not to mention, during this time, the marriage between the couple was really rocky. He even had an affair with one of Tony's female classmates who Barbara had originally wanted to marry his son. And Brooke didn't take his son being gay as good news either, because he decided to divorce Barbara in the mid-1960s, and run off with the girl he had an affair with. So Barbara ended up moving to London with Tony, where the relationship between these two really changed. And their relationship became codependent, complicated, and volatile. Barbara continued trying to cure her son's homosexuality by pairing him up with other women and prostitutes. But none of her efforts worked. So she took matters into her own hands. Keep in mind that Barbara was super self-absorbed, and thought she was so beautiful that if no woman could cure her son, she could do the job herself. So in 1969, she seduced her drunk and high son by sleeping with him. She even bragged about it to her friends. And this sucks too, because Tony was already dealing with bad mental health that was going untreated, and he felt like he was being forced to sleep with his own mother repeatedly against his will. It was even rumored that a man Tony was seeing at the time got mixed into a threesome with them. And to think, all of this was done at an attempt to make her son straight. The process continued until 1972, where he just snapped and stabbed his mom with a kitchen knife. She did manage to survive, but she didn't press charges against him. But Tony did had to go see a shrink afterwards, where he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Despite the fact the shrink did warn Barbara that her son may try to kill her again. Barbara did not believe him. But unfortunately, 3 weeks later, on November 17, 1972, Tony did stab Barbara near the heart, shortly calling the ambulance afterwards. By the time detectives had arrived, it was reported Tony was totally disconnected from what had happened. So Tony was then brought to treatment at a high-security ward, and was released on July 21, 1980, thanks to the help of his family status. Keep in mind his family did invent plastic, which shows enough money can get him out of that situation. Upon release, Tony moved in with his grandmother in New York. But these two ended up having a lot of conflicts as well. Mainly because she was Barbara's mother. It actually took less than a week of living there before he finally stabbed his own grandma with a knife 8 times. Luckily, she did survive the assault, but Tony was sent to prison for attempted murder. And 8 months later, on the day of his court appearance, Tony was found dead in his prison cell with a plastic bag over his head. He had killed himself by suffocation. This just comes to show no matter how rich someone may be, you can't assume they have the perfect life. We all deal with our own little demons, and we all have our own personal struggles. I recommend checking out the book, Savage Grace, for anyone who wishes to uncover the sick and narcissistic mindset of Barbara Baekeland. If you have any true crime books you'd like for me to review, let me know in the comments below.